Angela is a management consultant, and she is going to present to us on women-focused SMEs and finance options, the experience of Bestmat Consultancy Limited. Now, tell us, as you come for your discussion, I would want to know the focus on women and what it means. People have talked about, like James before, and Tiki have talked about women being given their numbers, and the youth, they are really, to make a turnaround, you need to embrace them. What's your thought about the perspective of women?
Thank you. Women are critical in society because we need to have a balance when it comes to business. We've been having dialogue for years regarding how to increase women footprint within society, and yet we know that they do cover quite a big chunk of both formal and informal sector. So I think there can be no discussion held without inputting women into the equation. And to do so, you require to ensure that all the ingredients are in place. We have seen a small turnaround in Uganda and in Africa in particular, where we're seeing inroads, but the inroads are not that big. It's baby steps, and we still have a lot to do to build the confidence of the women, to encourage them to take risks, to encourage them to go into business that is in risky areas, or what we perceive is risky areas, big business, where we'll have big return. So we must engage women in all sectors, and we shouldn't really get them to what we call the soft skill businesses, and we must be able to support them all the way. But we must also be able to calculate what they bring to the economy and what they bring to society in terms of value, because a lot of what women do is not put into tangible results that can actually be calculated. And then you can, to give us a baseline. So I think it's critical that women are pulled to the forefront, and we are here to activate this, but we also need more activists to ensure that we balance the playing field. So I'm a management consultant, and my specialty is strategic management, business development services, and really restructuring organizations. And I've been at this for over 2 decades. And prior to that, I started off in the banking industry for over 13 years. A playing field, the foundation really to talk to members who are listening across the continent about the challenges women face and how we can go through the process of finding financing and mitigating some of the challenges. I have 2 companies, but one, my pet peeve really is on service quality on the continent. So I've taken an active role in changing the levels of service across the different countries. And I've been able to then get involved in the operational aspects of many, many companies. So when I started business, I left the banking industry when I was at the height of my career. I was heading consumer banking in one of the bigger banks. And at that time, I realized that we still have to end up in enterprise or start businesses of one sort or another, whether we are young within the working field or whether we are close to retirement. But I did have a particular product that I could actually put out there. And yet I knew that the long hours within corporate Uganda were not working for me on the family front. So I took the leap, and I took the leap knowing that my support structures may not necessarily be as strong or firm as I required. However, I still did it. And the first thing was to figure out what to do. And this is one of the challenges we face when we go into businesses. We look around and either copy what somebody else has or go into something that we've seen churning out a lot of money for others. And sometimes the motivation will kill our businesses halfway through, 2 years later, 3 years later. Now, my challenge was that I was more service oriented. So I was prone to using my mind. And I knew that was what I was good at. That was my asset, the ability to get information and then utilize it for businesses to grow. But at that point, consulting was a myth in Africa. Companies were not willing to hire consultants, and if they did, they didn't fully embrace the recommendations made by consultants. So I started my research on what I wanted to offer, and I had to offer what I felt I was good at. So I had to go back using the Hansel and Gretel theory, following the breadcrumbs to know what particularly can I give that can give them value. So the first thing I had to do was believe in myself. But at that point, I realized that belief in myself does not necessarily mean people believe in you. You can have a very good product and nobody believes in you, and therefore you won't have the clientele to follow through. And therefore, in trying to understand why others were not so keen on believing in what I was offering, I had to go and find out. I had to get up and request for meetings during management meetings of different corporates. I had to place myself up there, up front and center. I was fortunate I had very good employers before who were keen on ensuring that my value was shared. And therefore, it showed me that we all need to have good networks, good linkages with whoever we work for, because these become your first linkage to the next clients. And then I had to understand the business. But management consulting in Africa by then, 20 years ago, was hardly known. And even among ourselves as consultants, we did not want to share information. So there was no baseline from which to gauge, am I doing the right thing? Am I giving the right information? So I linked myself to many organizations abroad. Online, I joined many masterclass programs and started building my name from that angle. But I had to do the search, and the right search had to be done online, getting to know people who can actually play with you and, creating a tribe. This tribe came from people who are conscious about change, who are conscious about service excellence, people who believed in the same thing I believed in. While I was gaining that footprint, I had to start networking. And I was fortunate to join Uganda Women Entrepreneurs, where I served on in different positions, but I've been chairing them for the last 3 years, and I was on the board for the last 6. During that time, I also started getting so involved in joining boards to manage different aspects of women entrepreneurship. So when I joined the Uganda Women Entrepreneurs, I went in as a consultant, worked on their strategic plan, and most of the time it was offering services at a very low price, simply to get in and to also understand the market. Because you can't always set your price high at the very beginning. But that opened up so many doors. After working on their strategy 2014, 2019, I successfully managed to do strategy formulation for over 12 companies within a space of 2 years. And that now made my name start growing. And it wasn't an easy journey, because when you make an offer of a low-priced service, you still must maintain and give quality. So it was critical that I understood the business, I understood the content. I knew my goal was to increase my footprint initially, because I had knocked at doors and many doors were not opening. And then I started noticing that we undervalue our services, we undervalue our products, because once you step in low priced, many people expect you to stay low priced. So you have to manage the expectations of your clients. You must be able to tell them, I may have done it at a lower cost in the first 1 year, but this is the accurate pricing for my services. And over time, it takes time, it's a journey, it doesn't happen overnight, but I stopped undervaluing my products because I now knew what the market dictates. Now, in the service industry, it's not very easy to set pricing. It's not like buying a bottle of mineral water and knowing the price is 2,500 Uganda shillings. In the service industry, you have to know which components are more time consuming. As a consultant, our hours of work span from 3 hours to 24 hours. Sometimes we work overnight when we have a deadline. And then there are months when you have no work at all. And I was curious as to how the tax body and other, for example, banks you would send bids to would take this. They did not understand the concept of working partially, having work for a few months and then having some other months, not idle, but attending to so many other things. And that's where my voluntary work came in. So you found people questioning why you were not earning in certain months. So you had to learn to manage, understand your product, but then also manage the peak periods and manage the what we call the valleys. Now, during those times, I had to now get different services. So I have two companies. One was very active in beginning of the year, middle of the year, and towards November. And then in the other months, I started offering services to companies that had a plan, but hadn't budgeted for it. So I would perform services, do training, but then ask them to defer the payment for 6 months when their budgets are approved. And therefore, I kept busy. But when you do that kind of thing, you know that you still have to give quality and you still have to have the wait period without having the anger that comes from delayed payment. So that kind of built my client base and also gave confidence in my suppliers and my clients as well, that if I could make the offer upfront and provide the service, they were willing to stay with me year on. And every year I started getting retainer clients. And I also figured out that when we are spending, which at the beginning, when we are startups, we are minimalist. So we buy poor quality paper, we buy poor quality cameras. For example, if you're doing training, you want to get the cheapest consultant who may not be as good as you want. One of the key things you must avoid is really being minimalist when you're investing in those things that become your brand. The cost may be high on some of those aspects, but the aspects become you. Your brand identity then shows out there. I also had challenges with mindset. And I've noticed it happens with many businesses. There was an issue of looking over your shoulder. What is my fellow consultant doing? What is he providing that is different? What does he have that is similar to what I'm offering? Is he copying me? If I give my notes out, will they be used? So there was a lot of looking over your shoulder, and it tends to drag you backwards because you then enter a loop of blaming. That blame game brings your quality down, and it also depresses you. So you find that if they have done something, you don't want to go in the same field, and yet you're trying to become a specialist in that particular field. So don't look over your shoulder. If you're confident about your product or your service, compete. The market is big enough. The other thing I noticed was that we tend to get very upset when we get competition. I used competition to up my game. I went into team building and what we call extreme sport for people who wanted simulation training. I had to then learn how to do simulation training. I had to go online. I had to get onto Patreon. I had to get onto Vimeo. I had to get onto all these sites that would make me stronger than my opponent. So most of my work now is online. It has been way before. I had started way before COVID last year. So I sailed through the first COVID phase because I had online trainings already laid up, and I was able to still put food on the table. Now, pricing is hard. Getting it right is also not easy in the service industry. So I used to ask clients, how much would you pay for this? And if someone gave me a rate, I then multiplied it by 3. Usually we give a third of work, because for some reason, when I came through with the ×3 of what their offer was, I was then able to get a gauge, and from that gauge, I was then able to get your reputation is known, and people will be willing to pay what you other people have paid. Now, what I also realized, when you give discounts the discounts should be for specified periods of time. Otherwise, some clients will insist on having the same discounts each time they come to you. So be open with your client about your pricing. I must say at the very beginning when it was hard, finding funding to begin wasn't that easy. And I went into barter trade at some point where I did some strategic plans for the service, and it was a quid pro quo, and I was able to get products and I would be able to give them a service as well. So barter trade may seem archaic, but it seems to have worked for me as well at a time when I didn't have the financial muscle to actually pay up front or for what I wanted from them. I had to be resilient. I have 4 children and I have a very busy life with so many voluntary activities. We have a family resort to run, which was also coming in with different experiences. And from all these, I had to be very challenging when you work alone and when you work from home. I had an office. We were paying rent at some point, but when you're a consultant, you're constantly on the move. So I had to look at some of these costs and ask, why am I having an office that's empty 3/4 of the time, and yet I'm spending on it? So you have to look at everything on your own and not based on what other people are doing. Then hiring, we had to go into hiring for attitude, because we realized with all the qualifications a person has, if a person doesn't have the right attitude, then they will get your business to collapse. So look for the attitude. It should be a bigger chunk of the hiring process, because a person with the right attitude can learn. A person with the right qualification and wrong attitude brings your business down. And we did have some firefighting episodes where we constantly had to not get some people out because they were ruining the brand. And of course, there was constant learning. I think I was reading about 20 books a month just to up my content game and also to be knowledgeable of what I was offering. So when we look at the financing options that I looked at as I started both my businesses, was one, I had to have a budget based on a strategy and a plan. At the beginning, I was lackluster about it. I didn't take it too seriously, and I made mistakes because of that. So when I finally sat down I was training people how to make plans and budgets, but when it comes to you doing it on your own, there are things you leave out. And yet these come in as ad hoc costs later on. I then looked at what financing I required. And you have to calculate the total amount, whether it's short-term, medium-term, or long-term, because this will then guide you on where to look for funding. Are you going to look for funding from micro support financing options? Will you need a SACCO to help? Will you need a bank loan? Do you need to look for a grant? All these come from the finance plan that you will have, knowing that in the long term, I probably need this much space for my staff. I need this equipment, etc. So have that plan ready. And then I planned for contingency cost planning, where, for example, if I don't get a client to pay on time, how do I meet the financing of my plan? And those contingency costs, I made sure that I had specific things that had to be paid. Salaries, for example, where am I getting this financing from? So the options were many. At startup, it was mainly personal finances, but the personal finances can never be that much. When you have children in school, you have bills to pay, you have family members who have requirements. So I knew that the margin of personal finances is ABC. Of course, I was doing extra things. For example, I was painting for leisure. There were things I was doing which were making money, but it wasn't something I was really keen on. Those were hobbies that had turned into business ideas. I had a teenage program, entrepreneurship program, every holiday, which also brought financing in. And then I got parents who wanted their children counseled, especially errant children who were addicted to some substances or were having challenges. So parents were also willing, and these were part-time on the side things, which kind of helped to bring in some financing, because they started growing from a hobby into an actual business, but a side business. Then I had friends and family, but we must be aware that friends and family usually will be the last to lend you, and they will become hawks, and they'll disturb you if you don't pay on time. They'll tell the whole world how you've lent them money. So when you come to a family member for money, then you must have a non-disclosure agreement. And I'm laughing because when you tell them, they will find it funny. But you must also have terms of payment with them. Respect their money and the way in which you're going to pay it. Many people don't feel they have to pay back family members' money borrowed or friends' money borrowed. So make it a transaction. Now, the others are peer-to-peer lending, join associations. They'll give you options. They'll also give you references. At the same time, you must be able to have peer-to-peer lending options. My one caution is don't go to the loan sharks if you want your business to survive. The interest rates are abominable, and you will find you spend more money paying the loan shark and moving money away from what you should have been paying. And when you have money that you're borrowing, please ensure you pay within the specified period. You must have that level of integrity. Now, all the others, the overdrafts help you on day-to-day borrowing, but you must already be with the bank, and you must have your records, you must have your books of accounts in order. So that takes time. I usually think that's more medium term. Startups will not necessarily go for overdrafts or be awarded overdrafts immediately, but you can prove to the bank if you have any of those. If you have a property, if you have a car you can hire, if you want a loan for vehicle leasing, that kind of thing. So that is more medium term, where the others, the softer ones, is more immediate. So start in the long term is where you can seek, if you have a social enterprise, seek grants or other schemes. These are usually informed, associations are normally informed of these, and take opportunity, because there's some financing that will come in the form of capacity building, which will train for you staff, which will be able to help you with equipment if they're giving equipment. And of course, finally, don't fear angel investors. The thing is, we hold on to our businesses like an egg, and we fear to bring venture capitalists or angel investors in to help us. But you must do your research so that you're getting financing based on what business you're in. Now, when it comes to your mindset really is critical in this entire entrepreneurship journey. The business is not about you. The idea may have been yours in the first place, but once you incorporate your business and hire people, it's no longer about you. It's about the business. So have your structures and processes in place. The second thing is know the law of fair exchange. When you get something for free, I'm remembering yesterday's session where someone was talking about free data. And I was saying, when you get free data, free training, we don't take it seriously. We don't incorporate what we receive if we have not given something in exchange. So one of the universal laws is the law of fair exchange. Pay for what you require to input, and also pay for services that you will get to build your business. Be consistent. When you borrow, be consistent on payment. When you are producing any particular product or service, be consistent on quality. Be consistent on integrity. Embrace the tough times. The tough times are here. We're all facing them in one way or another. Our staff are embracing them. So you must be able to know this is just a valley. Don't give up and run off and start again. Starting a different business tomorrow because you let this one collapse still means you will go through the same challenges over again. So what you do is have stopgap measures, close the shop if you have to for the lockdown period, account your losses, and then say, this is the time I'm going to kickstart, but I'll kickstart when I have improved my business to this level. Integrity, honesty are critical. They are crucial when you're dealing in private business, because people buy your integrity, not your product. They buy you, they buy your vision. There are many people they can get the same thing from, but why would they want to come to you again and again? As you're building your network, learn from your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Don't take your mistakes as a failing point. Pick up from them and say, okay, I got this wrong. I won't repeat it, and then start again. And then train your team. We have trained our teams. Sometimes we don't even train them at all because we think it is a cost. And yet, if you don't train the team, how will they take your vision out there? Then we have to adapt quickly. Now, we in the training consulting world are seeing less work, especially as businesses have closed and priorities for funding are being placed elsewhere. So we have to quickly come up with solutions that come up for businesses. Right now, it's ripe to tell people how to restructure. So I go that direction. When we come out of this, people will be in frame of mind to go back into employee engagement. I will then go back to that. I will be able to apportion time. So the ability to adapt quickly and stay positive is important. Of course, when it comes to finance distribution, I know Ochichi yesterday said there's a 50-30-20 rule. I changed mine based on the service industry and specifically for consulting to a 30% operational costs, 30% labor fees, salaries and taxes, and 40% profit margin. And I'm
Angela,
then able to calculate.
Angela, you should
I'm winding up.
Wind up in 1 minute. You have passed your time by 5 minutes.
I will do so. All right. So the final thing I'll probably talk about is your employees. Employees are your champions. 30% are your champions, 40% are on the fence. So work on your champions and the 40% who are neither here or there, nor there. Those who want to, who can be strengthened, and those ones who may not necessarily be strengthened. And with the technology, they've already talked about it, but I'll talk about one thing. Get your platforms and cascade without irritating information out there, and learn to adhere to netiquette. If you're used to getting angry on the internet, you're going to lose clients. Personalize your messages, but adhere to good language, good communication, and you'll then be able to sell a brand. So finally, eliminate fear, take risks, calculated ones, understand gender equality so that you can embrace it, understand people, and go into those male-dominated areas, go into construction, go into all those areas that you feel only men have made a mark. Lean in, support each other. Women usually don't support fellow women, so we are making it really one of our core objectives to ensure that women support women businesses. And I thank EcoBank really for pushing the women-led business agenda. And everything you do matters. So quality, quality, quality. I want to thank you for listening to my journey.
Brilliant journey, brilliant presentation, and testimonies, approved testimonies, brilliant. Angela, you're good, and we take note of that.